Sana, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, Mario.
Speaker mic, Sana, can you hear me?
All good. Thanks, Mario.
I can hear you.
Yeah, someone. No, it's on you. But nice.
Recording in progress.
The House Chairperson.
Recording.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. You may be seated. Honorable members, all our ministers are here, but two that will be on virtual platform. That is the Honorable Minister of International Relations and Cooperation and the Honorable Minister in the Presidency, but their deputy ministers are here in case they have a problem on the virtual platform. Having said that, honorable members, the only item on today's order paper is questions addressed to ministers in Cluster 1, Peace and Security. There are 4 supplementary questions on each question. Parties have given an indication of which questions their members wish to pose a supplementary question on. Adequate notice was given to parties for this purpose. This was done to facilitate participation of members who are connecting to the sitting through the virtual platform. The members who will pose supplementary questions will be recognized by the presiding officer in allocating opportunities for supplementary questions. The principle of fairness, among others, has been applied. If a member who is supposed to ask a supplementary question through the virtual platform is unable to do so due to technological difficulties, the party whip on duty will be allowed to ask the questions on behalf of their member. When all supplementary questions have been answered by the executive we will proceed to the next question on the question paper. Honorable members, the first question has been asked by the Honorable Masuku to the Minister of Police. That is question number 3. May I now recognize the the Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Operation Chanela, which was launched on the 8th.
Honorable Cele, Minister, you are at liberty to come and use the podium, unlike for you to, if you feel comfortable, you are not forced, but you can come and use and then you'll sit down and so on until the 4 questions are done. That is better for us all. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your understanding. We start afresh.
Thank you very much, Chair. Operation Chanela, which was launched on the 8th of May 2023 through weekly targeted high-density operations, has led to the South African Police Service and its partners effecting a substantial number of arrests in respect of various types of violent crimes, including armed robbery, rape and murder, and the seizure of various items, including firearms and ammunition, illegal drugs, stolen and robbed vehicles. Major drug busts were executed at several ports of entry, and clandestine drug laboratories were located and dismantled. The high-density operations has increased policy visibility in communities and have therefore also served as a deterrent to crime and indicated during occasion of the release of the 3rd quarter crime statistics for the financial year 23-24. It is clear through the number of arrests made that Operation Chanela is making its mark and putting dent in serious violent and organized crime. Operation Chanela supplements other operations, hence it is labor intensive, and you put more resources and cost intensive and difficult. Though is cost intensive and difficult to sustain in terms of resources, we continue to use the limited resources to implement and take it forward to protect South Africans. Thanks.
Thank you. The Honorable Masuku.
Sibonge Minister impendulo lejulile ngiyathemba ukuthi bahlali nokomanisi Is it fine? Sibonge impendulo lejulile Minister. Siyathemba ukuthi bakuvile bahlali emakomanisi nema-military veterans laba bathi bafuna kusebenza nemaphoyisa babambisana nawo ukuthi khishwe emgulugudu emphakathini. Minister nethi sifuna mina embuto wami nje ngifuna kwathi ukuthi njengoba besifocus kakhulu kuleti indzawo leti dance la emadolobheni thina ngale kaBunyathulu nitawufika nini lemakhaya nasemaplazini la abantu bahlupheka khona la kulahleka khona imfuyo nayo yonke into. Siyabonga.
Hlonishwa.
Honorable Member, Operation Chanela was launched on a full understanding of the analysis of the crime patterns in the country, including those areas you talk about in the rural areas. If you look at your crime stats for last reporting period conservatively, we have reduced the stock theft in the rural areas and in the farms, which tells you the story then that the analysis and the response of the police in those particular areas is beginning to be effective. But as you say, the study tells us that the high level of crime in the Republic of South Africa starts on Thursday until Monday morning and around Shebeens and those entertainment areas. So the concentration is on those days, but the concentration also around those areas of entertainment, especially alcohol. You can't believe that it's only 31% of South Africans that are drinking alcohol, but they behave like they're 100%. So if we can deal, that statistic is according to the World Health Organization, that is only 31%. And those people, they cause almost 80% of crimes in South Africa. So if we can deal with those illegal shippings and legal shippings, but not sticking to the law, life could be better. So this operation is part of that.
Thokoze Mhlonishwa. Yes, Honorable Macpherson.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just bring to your attention that the translation services aren't operational.
Oh, presently, he had already raised it with the secretary. They are looking into it. So thank you for that advice. May we now proceed as they are working on it to the Honorable Ter Blanche.
Thank you, Chairperson. Last year, the Minister reported that during the second quarter of the 2023-24 financial year, 1st July to 30 September, 75 people were murdered in South Africa each day. Now, he claims phenomenal successes since the implementation of Operation Chanela. However, the 23-24 third quarter crime stats released by the Minister on 16 February, 1st October to 31st of December suggest otherwise. The reality is that SAPS reported that 7,710 people were murdered in the span of 3 months. Do you agree, Minister, that you failed the President's commitment he made in 2019 State of the Nation address to halve violent crime over the next decade? Almost all categories of crime are moving in the opposite direction in the 5 years since the promise was made. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Well, since you are a former police officer yourself, and I will tell you the disaster I left. Since you're a police officer yourself, in South Africa, crime statistics, by the way, they started in '94. There were no crime statistics before the new dispensation. Yes, there were no. No. Kola, don't say so. I grew up in the township. We used to pick up dead bodies every day in the township where I grew up. The only thing we did not know, Honorable Kola, the only thing we did not know about it because it was never reported. The murder of a black person in South Africa was never reported before '94. So this thing of crime stat is something new.
Okay.
So you can't measure. For instance, the first statistics that were released, the very first, there were 34,000 murders. That was first in '95, 34,000. And indeed, we've gone down until 2011, 2012, where we came to 15,000. Unfortunately, from 2012 going up, we picked up and all that. But we believe with Operation Chanela, we've reached the plateau and we are beginning to go down. I fully agree with you. Those numbers of people that are murdered in South Africa are highly unacceptable. That's why we're putting more resources. That's why we're training more police. That's why we're putting more equipment, but that's why we're putting more hours and more effort. We have reached the plateau from this plateau, but remember, it's a new thing. It was never known how black people died before '94.
Thank you. Honorable Faber, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, just on a point of order, the Honorable Minister, number one, cannot speak to our members directly. He can speak through you. The secondly, he cannot call Kolar. He can say Honorable Kolar Barnett if he was speaking about it, please. If you can just refrain.
Agreed, we proceed. Honorable Minister, the next question is from the Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Minister, the success of this operation depends on the availability of the tools of trade, including but not limited to the contributing factors to this high-level crime. And I'm glad that you've just raised the issue of alcohol. It's something we hear every province that we visit. Now, what collaboration exists between the department and local government who are providing these licenses for liquor outlets 24 hours, despite the liquor board restricting it to 2 o'clock, which is contributing to the high levels of crime? And very importantly, many stations are complaining they have lack of resources, particularly vehicles that are lying in garages for up to a year. How are you dealing with this to ensure they have all the tools of trade to combat crime?
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thanks very much, Chair. Honorable Kola Barnett. Chair, the biggest tools of trade in policing in the whole Republic and in the whole world are warm bodies. It doesn't matter what you buy, it doesn't matter what you do. If you don't have warm bodies, you are not going to do policing. For some reason, it happened that in the year 2010, we had 195,000 members of the South African Police Service with 50 million South Africans. Now we have 62 million South Africans with 187,000, 20,000 down from 2010. Thanks to the President and the Treasurer, who are giving us some resources to correct that. It is on that score that in the previous, or year previous, last year, we trained 10,000 South Africans, young South Africans to be members of the South African Police Service. Last year, we trained another 10,000. This year, we're training another 10,000. That will give us almost the figures of 2010 rather than of 2024. If you don't have human beings to do the work, because it's a labor intensive, it's a human intensive, this work is not going to work. So from them, you train specialized units. For instance, last year, out of 10,000, 4,000 went to POP, public order policing. I just wish that we don't train so much public order policing, because if everybody does his or her work, public order policing won't be needed. If people don't protest wanting in Zabo and all that, you won't need POP. So we'll take that human capital to fight crime per se. Therefore, the question asked, we have started to reverse the shortage, especially on the human capital. Yes, we are buying other things, but before we correct human capital, it won't work much.
Thank you. All the honorable ministers and deputy ministers, there is a monitor on your left-hand side. Once it turns red, it shows be careful. Thank you. Honorable Majosi.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. Can I keep my video off since I'm on the road, just to stay connected to the House?
Khan sister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, one of the areas of focus for Operation Chanela is the tracing of wanted suspects with a focus on murder and rape suspects. Considering that South Africa's per capita murder rate for 2022-2023 was the highest it has been in 20 years, how will this operation be adapted to be proactive in its protection of citizens rather than reactive in its search to find murders after lives have been lost? And also the fact that I've been raising these issues in the portfolio committee, that the Operation Chanela must also go into hostels. What is the strategy going forward? Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
Thanks very much, Yes, indeed. Operation Chanela works, as I've said, on the analyze way. Ask the question, what has happened? Since launched on the 8th of May until the end of December, 442,000 people have been arrested. That's 442. Those is above those that are in prison. These 442. Among them are wanted criminals, murder, hijackers, and all that. 13 laboratories, illegal laboratories have been dismantled in the country, including the last one, the biggest ever, that was dismantled in Canton Park last week. 6 top busting, the drug bust has been done, which is almost 500 million on a straight value. So it has really put this operation on serious effective of crime prevention. Well, the honorable member asked if we have not been in hostels. Unfortunately, we don't come back to tell you we have operated there, we have operated there, we have operated there. We have been in hostels, especially those that are notorious hostels. One of them is Guamashu. We have been in Guamashu several times. And you remember, we have found many people, many criminals that they hide Guamashu and all that. And some hostels in Denver, GP, Maimai, and all that, we have been there. So unfortunately, we can't give blow by blow that's where we have been, what we have done. But in the Operation Chanela, it finds us everywhere, including the hostel that the member has been concerned about.
Thank you. You may take your seat until you are requested again to come and respond. Thank you, Honorable Minister. As we now invite the Honorable Minister of International Relations and Cooperation to respond on the question asked by the Honorable Powell. The Minister, question number 38.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. The reply to the question is that applicants who qualify for a South African diplomatic passport must have their application submitted with a covering official letter from the relevant ministry or department or a branch within a department. They would need the approval of the Director General of the department and should submit a completed passport application form signed in the normal manner, a certified copy of their identity document or card, and a certified copy of the biographical page of a current diplomatic passport if they already hold one. Those are the requirements at this time. I have had occasion to discuss this with the Director General and to say I think we need to look at these requirements and have a stricter set because they're rather too general. But that is the practice at the moment. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. The Honorable Powell.
Thanks, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, a number of months ago, the presidency denied the DA's request to understand who has been issued with diplomatic passports. It's clear that there is incredible secrecy around who your department has issued a diplomatic passport to, notwithstanding, of course, the diplomatic privileges and immunities that arise from having access to such a passport. In an open democracy, it should stand to reason that strict rules would apply to the issuing of such passports and that information in this regard would be open to parliamentary scrutiny. This is, of course, to ensure that these sorts of passports are not dished out to curry political favor. Towards the end of last year, in a joint meeting with the head of the Council of Traditional Leaders, the chairperson of the DIRCO Portfolio Committee instructed officials within your department to ensure that certain groups of individuals were issued with diplomatic passports. Can you please give us your reflections on whether or not you believe it's acceptable for politicians in Parliament to issue instructions to officials in your department? And will you undertake to provide us with a list of all diplomatic passport holders? Thank you, Minister.
Honorable Powell, I hope you know that Rule 1425 restricts you to ask only one follow-up question. It is up to the discretion of the minister whether he responds to all your questions. The Honorable, the Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, South Africa's democracy is one of the most open and transparent in the world. We have very, very strict rules around openness. However, we must follow international practice and ensure that no official is exposed to a poor or negative treatment by any individual or entity in any part of the world. I know that in terms of the Constitution, we have a separation of powers between Parliament, the executive, the judiciary, and other organs of governance. And thus, while certainly Parliament scrutinizes and finalizes legislation, the policy would come from the executive to Parliament. And thus, if a matter is within the legislative domain and has been endorsed through an act signed by the president, clearly then the executive would act on the basis of that legislation. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The Honorable Muela will be next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for the response. In light of the requirements outlined for issuing a diplomatic passport to South African citizens, can the Honorable Minister elaborate on any recent initiative or improvement implemented by the department to streamline and expedite the application process for diplomatic passports, ensuring efficiency and effectiveness in serving the diplomatic community? Thank you very much, Honorable Minister and Honorable House Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable, the Minister.
I thank Honorable Muela for the question. We do strive at all times to improve our performance in a range of areas, but I think it's important to point out that we receive and process applications. The issuing would be by the Department of Home Affairs, which has the statutory responsibility for processing passport applications. So we would confirm that the applicant can indeed hold a diplomatic passport, but the actual issuing would be through the government printers and with the instruction and directive of the Department of Home Affairs. And we have had a significant improvement in South Africa in the processing and issuing of passports since the Department of Home Affairs overhauled its processes and improved the processing vastly. So what we would want to look at would be, are we issuing these to the persons who should hold them, and are the diplomatic passports being utilized for the purposes for which they're issued? At this moment, I am satisfied that we are pursuing this particular aspect of our work in terms of the law, and would welcome any indication to the contrary. I would then act on it. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Motlotlegi Montweni.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, how many applications has the department recorded thus far? And what are the plans in place to assist those whose applications were rejected? Thank you.
Thank you. I will also refer you to 1.27. Proceed, Honorable Minister.
Thank you. Honorable Mundwedi, potso eo ke potso e ntšha. Le mpotsitse ka gore go tlhokega eng gore motho a fiwe passport diplomatic. Potso e botsang e ntšha, ha e le gore o batla ke ya araba, ke kopa gore o mpotse potso sentle and ke tla ya araba. Ke a leboga.
Wa utlwala go ya ka melao e re berekisang mme. Re tswela pele the Honorable Hlengwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. Honorable Minister, in the initial response to the question, you said something which I think is fundamentally important at the end of your response, when you spoke about the need of relooking at and reviewing the regulations in order to tighten them, in order to ensure the collective integrity of our passports. And so want to encourage that exercise to be undertaken. But Minister, the inverse of the issuance of passports for South African diplomats is the issuance of visas for foreign diplomats coming into South Africa. And I think it's important that we've put in place systems in place for that. So what I want to ask the Minister is there a program to expedite the issuance of visas? I spoke to one BRICS diplomat coming into South Africa. We had to wait about 3 months in order to get a visa to come into the country. So I think that for those, there has to be a seamless operation between the two, that it's
Your
passport
time is
on one
up,
hand,
Honorable
but visas
Member.
on the other hand. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just a reminder that the member is allowed to make a statement or an opinion. I didn't hear the question, but the minister will respond.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and I thank the Honourable Member. I wish to begin by asserting that the passport of South Africa, which was a new passport developed by the Department of Home Affairs, is a passport that has been found to be secure and thus to have, for want of a better term, integrity. We certainly have tightened both access to the South African passport and all security norms for the issuing of a passport, and security markers within it have been vastly improved, to the point that other countries are looking at our own passport in South Africa and wish to learn from us how to develop a vastly improved instrument. With respect to visas, this is not within my domain. This is in the domain of the Department of Home Affairs. Of course, where there are delays or queries, we would assist with. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's a reference to me, but Chairperson, we would assist should diplomats require assistance. And if the Honourable Member could let me know which diplomat is referring to and what the particular problem was, if it's within the domain of our work, clearly we would be able to address that. There have been instances where there have been proposals for appointment which do not meet the criteria of South Africa, and we have had to not agree to those persons being given any access to our country and to diplomatic status. But that is always dealt with within our regulatory regime. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. We proceed to question number 25, asked by the Honorable Mundwedi to the Honorable Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. Ma'am Kalipi, I don't see Honorable Mundwedi, you'll do it. Okay, thank you. You may respond or may proceed, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The response to the question is that the Cabinet has indeed received notice of the resolution adopted by the National Assembly, and Cabinet is yet to deliberate and finalize on the issue linked to the closure of Israel's embassy in South Africa and the proposed suspension of all diplomatic ties until a ceasefire is agreed to by Israel, as well as having Israel's commitment to binding UN-facilitated negotiations whose outcome must be a just, sustainable, and a lasting peaceful solution to the conflict, with the two states, Israel and Palestine, living side by side, both enjoying peace and security. So until Cabinet has made a decision, there would not be any action on the resolution that Madam Speaker has alerted Cabinet to. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ma'am Kalipi.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, if the Cabinet still has to deliberate on the decision that was taken November 21 last year. This is very, very, very out of order. Nevertheless, Minister, we took this decision as a party to lodge a formal submission for the closure of the Israel embassy and expel its ambassador. We did so because we appreciate the scale and significance of the genocide taking place in Gaza, which is still taking place even today after illegal occupation of Palestinian land by Israel that continues to implement apartheid in Palestine, a murderous government. We are encouraged by the decision taken by the government of Brazil to cut all diplomatic ties with Israel. Why as South Africans not doing it today? Why we have to take too long? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Indeed, there's a recent indication by Brazil. I don't think they have cut all ties, as has been reported in the press, but certainly there's a tension following President Lula's keynote address at the Assembly of the African Union. With respect to South Africa, you would be aware that the ambassador of Israel was withdrawn by his own country, and that South Africa has closed its embassy in Israel, and that all that is operational in terms of provision of services to citizens in that part of the Middle East region, we have the embassy in Ramallah, which, as the honorable member would be aware, is granted its diplomatic status by the state of Israel, which is the occupying force in Palestine. On the matter of the genocide that we believe is underway in Gaza, we have made our approach to the ICJ. The honorable member is aware of the provisional measures that have been laid down by the International Court of Justice, and is also aware that Israel has not responded positively on the measures that the ICJ set out, and that we have alerted the ICJ to our concerns as to the danger posed to innocent Palestinians following even an approach to one of the most important UN institutions on the globe. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. As I proceed to Honorable B.S. Nkosi.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. In the aftermath of the National Assembly's resolution in November 2023 and the recall of the Israeli ambassador, what diplomatic alternatives or channels is the government exploring to address the concerns that led to the call for the closure of the Israeli embassy?
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you to Honorable Nkosi for that question. The honorable member would be aware that we are in constant communication with various stakeholders and leaders in Israel who are supportive of peace in Palestine and who support freedom for the Palestinian people. We don't have engagement with the government of Israel at present. We also have engagements with the government of Palestine, the Palestinian Authority, and the member would have heard me respond a few moments ago on the case that South Africa has placed before the International Court of Justice, which case indicates our belief that there is an intent to commit genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza and in all the occupied territories of Palestine. And we continue to prosecute and pursue that case along with other like-minded countries that have indicated a strong intention to join the case. There's also a second hearing underway at the instance of Palestine in the ICJ on whether the occupation of Palestine constitutes acts that are akin to apartheid and therefore that offend the UN Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We as South Africa are one of the 56 countries that have made a submission to the ICJ and made an oral presentation with regard to the second matter. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. The next question will come from the Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, if I recall that you made a statement at one stage that it's practically impossible to shut down completely the Israel embassy in South Africa, and of course for economic reasons and more. Now, my question is then, what is the rationale behind adopting this motion when we could rather deal with those that we can achieve, like South Africans with dual citizenship in the Israeli Defense Force, or putting in stringent visa conditions for Israelis traveling to South Africa? Would you not consider that as a means of putting pressure on Israel to comply with the ceasefire? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm not sure I would have used the word practically, the words practically impossible. I do think more action must be considered by the government in order to indicate the very serious concerns we have, particularly now with the threats that are being made to Palestinians who were directed to move both from the north and the south and are now gathered in 1.2 million in number in Rafah. The threat of an onslaught on Rafah is presaging a horrible catastrophe. So we are extremely concerned, and I believe that government needs to consider now what further measures it may wish to take with response to addressing the continuing harm that is befalling the people of Palestine. And of course, alongside that, we also believe that we should look at what steps we might take to support the call that all hostages held by Hamas must be freed as part of a package that would begin a process where we can have deliberations on a two-state solution. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last follow-up question will come from the Honorable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable Minister, you said some 4 months into the Russia-Ukraine war that the international community must focus on finding a sustainable solution. And you emphasized that such a solution will not be found in isolating one party or bringing it to its knees. And the ACDP agrees and believes the same principle as you've just enunciated applies to the Middle East situation and to Israel. You also subsequently said about Israel, breaking off diplomatic relations with Israel will be counterproductive, as it will also affect representative office in Ramallah, and by implication, weaken the meaningful role South Africa can play. Do you still hold to that view and the view that diplomacy and dialogue is the only option that is open so that we can bring peace to the Middle East? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Indeed, Mr. Swartz, I do believe that dialogue and negotiations are the route to peace. This is the Ubuntu philosophy that lies within the constitutional framework of South Africa. But I believe that where there is great harm being caused, a country such as South Africa has to indicate its concern and take concerted action to point to its displeasure with the harm visited upon an oppressed people. I think South Africa needs to be far stricter where there is oppression and denial of human rights. And it is this context that leads us not to be in a position to be in constant engagement with Israel. But I believe you and the ACDP can perhaps be extremely helpful in that you may have contacts in Israel that we do not have, and therefore perhaps you could use your persuasion to stop the bombardment of the people of Palestine, your persuasion to allow water, energy, and food in, your persuasion to address the trucks carrying aid that are stopped at borders to be allowed in, hundreds of trucks that are not being permitted, and thus forced starvation being visited upon the people of Palestine. I think given your contacts and your friendly relations with Israel, it would be most helpful if you could intervene in this regard. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you. As we invite the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs to the podium, we're now going to deal with question number 6. The first question is asked by the Honorable Pillay.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, I'm a bit troubled and I want to ask in terms of the rules, if it's allowed, because Honorable Hlengwa asked a question of international and national importance and put it in the public arena, but he asked it to a wrong minister. Am I allowed to clarify it because it troubles me?
In your 4 minutes, if you are able to answer in your 4 minutes, you can proceed to
I will.
it.
Thank you very much. I will. I'm surprised, Chairperson, because we have got 5 countries in BRICS, including South Africa. I'm not talking about the new ones because I don't think he was referring to them. China, excuse me, Russia and Brazil don't need visas to come to South Africa. So the diplomat is talking about don't come from those countries. India and China, they are visa-free at the diplomatic and official level. Anybody traveling with their diplomatic passport or official passport doesn't need a visa. So I would like to know this diplomat being mentioned here, which country he comes from. Thank you. The white paper recommends that the government of the Republic of South Africa review and perhaps even withdraw from the 1951 Convention and the 1967 Protocol relating to the status of refugees in order to accede to them with reservations like other countries. The procedure involved depositing the reservations with the Secretary General of the United Nations. That process will be followed, is outlined in Article 44 of the Convention, and further guidance is contained in Section 231 of the Constitution that deals with international agreements. Article 42 of the 1951 Convention empowers signatories to enter reservations to articles of the Convention other than Article number 1, which is definition of a refugee, Article number 3, which is non-discrimination, Article number 4, which is religion, and Article 16.1, which is access to the courts, and Article 33, which is non-refoulement or non-refoulement, and then Article 36, information on national legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You may take your seat if you want to, and then stand when you respond. Thank you. The next follow-up, Honorable Pillay, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, House Chair and Honorable Minister, for your response. The overhaul of the immigration laws may also require the harmonization of all the other immigration laws. Will the Minister consider also repealing these legislations? Thank you.
Thank you. Donna?
The white paper clearly proposes that the 4 acts that are in this area of immigration be totally repealed and be enacted from the scratch. It is the Citizenship Act of South Africa, passed in 1995, the Refugee Act passed in 1998, and the Immigration Act passed in 2002 rather. And lastly, the Identification Act passed in 1997. So definitely, yes, we are proposing that they be repealed because some of them have been amended so many times that officials cannot even interpret them any longer. Thank you.
Thank you. The next will be the Honorable McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. Talking of officials who can't interpret anything, if the ANC intends to create 500,000 jobs per year, your department must be the first to be overhauled, as you have dismally failed to issue visas and permits in time and chased away countless tourists in the process who create jobs. Your circular on the 21st of December 2023 for short-term visa holders to leave the country by the 23rd of February 2024 if their visa renewal had not been processed. In your SONA debate speech, you performed a U-turn and said if tourists had applied for a visa extension but had not yet received a response, their receipt was proof of this extension until their visa outcome had been determined. But tourists are still being banned and declared undesirables today. Will the minister issue an urgent directive to the BMA that their application receipt is proof of an extension of their visa until they learn the outcome, to clear up any confusion and stop the flight of tourists who support job creation? And if not, why do you not want to make sure that your BMA agents adhere to your directives? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Chairperson, whether this is still part of this initial question. I'm not, but I'm prepared to respond to it. I issued a statement about that issue. And what you are asking me to do is exactly what people are complaining about. My department issued a circular to BMA to do exactly what you are saying. And it raised an uproar. And I said it was not even necessary for that to happen. They were doing it because they were scared that new BMA officials may not understand. If your visa is about to expire and you apply for a new one, the receipt you get act as an extension until such time that you get a response, and nobody can arrest you. That circular was just to remind BMA officials about that don't arrest anybody who has got a receipt because they are waiting for a response. So we are not chasing any tourist away. We never did so. And the statement you issued clearly state that.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for realizing that the question was a new one. Let's not do that, honorable members, because I may not be clear with the content. So if ministers are going to raise it out, it helps me. Thank you. The Honorable Tejana.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson.
Is that you, you must say?
I'll be taking the question on behalf of Honorable Tejana.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you. Minister, we know that the stringent measures that you are proposing in the white papers are meant to deal with the question of immigration of Africans in particular into this country. So we want to ask you the following question. What measures has the minister put in place to ensure that plans or intervention introduced will not subject immigrants, asylum seekers to the same inhumane and degrading treatment which they often receive under your leadership? BMA needs to be capacitated for its effectiveness. However, does the minister believe it will be effective in its current form? Thank you very much.
Thank you. There were more than one question. Minister will respond the way.
Chairperson, an honorable member, we never issued any white paper exclusively for Africans. The white paper we issued is for the whole world, for all nationalities that want to migrate or come to South Africa. It's not about Africans only. Secondly, the BMA. Yes, we are capacitating the BMA, and there's a wrong belief here that the BMA is just there to deal with human beings who want to cross borders into the country. The BMA deals with trafficking of people, counterfeit goods, stolen goods, and every other thing that can collapse the economy. The BMA deals with that, and we are capacitating them to do that. And they are doing it very effectively now, even with small numbers. And I want to advise you that we have, for the past 7 months, trained 400 new border guards, and we are going to unveil them when they finish their training at the end of March to strengthen their work at the borders. Thank you very much.
Thank you. ICT, may you please come and assist with the monitors? Please, my table staff is struggling, but I have a plan as we proceed. The Honorable FJ Mulder.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Allowing a system to deteriorate can lead to violations and fundamental human rights. Timely interventions could have prevented asylum seekers and refugees from experiencing lengthy delays, unfair treatment, refoulement, the South African economy being harmed, the deterioration of security, the straying of public resources, and threatening of regional stability. Honorable House Chair, my question to the Honorable Minister would be, do the Minister agree that the earlier intervention of the Department of Home Affairs could have prevented the decay of affairs before the House today? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Chair, unfortunately, I don't understand this question. Early intervention of what? Because we always try to do things as early as we possibly can and as the law allowed. It's early intervention of what? Intervening where? May I be clarified, Chair? Please, otherwise I'll answer a wrong question.
I would just propose that the Honorable Mulder, because we are waiting on time, will have to write the question to you. It will be a written question that will assist us all as we proceed. And thank you. For the meantime, I will invite the Minister of Police and to respond on question 53 asked by the Honorable Majosi. Mikey, can I have your phone?
Thank you, Chair. I take note that I was not invited to sit down, but it's okay. The 10,000 entry-level Police Act trainees provided for the 24-25 financial year will be recruited and enlisted as follows. First intake for 24-25, that would be April, and that would be 4,500 recruits. And then the second intake would be 24-25 would be February 25 with 5,500 recruits. That will make 10,000. Bigger chunk of these numbers, they go to visible policing. Western Cape, as allocated, out of the allocation, 438 will go to visible policing. Eastern Cape, 369. Northern Cape, 150. Free State, 168. KwaZulu-Natal, 796. Northwest, 237. Mpumalanga, 694. Limpopo, 179. And Gauteng, 329. Altogether, out of 4,500 that would have been trained as a first intake, 3,500 will go to visible policing. Thanks.
Thank you. And my apologies, you may take your seat as we ask the follow-up question. Okay, the follow-up question, Honorable Majosi.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. Honorable Minister, in 2023, it was reported that in the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Northern Cape, around 26% of visible policing vehicles were not operational. How has this problem been addressed, especially considering that new recruits placed in the visible policing division will be in need of vehicles to do their work? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. We've taken note of the long time that our cars, they spend where they're supposed to be fixed. And indeed, if you go to the garages, whether you go to Pinoni, or whether you go to Limpopo, or whether you go to Mpumalanga, you'll find that there are many cars that are there. For that to improve, we have, as the South African Police, recruited young South Africans, send them to TVET colleges, those that they are trained as mechanics, but those that are not, to send them to TVET colleges. And we are trying to decentralize the fixing of cars rather than one car that is broken down in Durban is sent to Mpangeni. Mpangeni cars must be fixed at Mpangeni. Etala cars and Ngobo cars must be fixed. So we're increasing two things. We're increasing the distribution of work, but we're putting more young people in training to be able to work with the police with a very strict timelines that this kind of breakdown will have to take this time. We have put quite a number of young people now in this process. We believe that when everybody is there and when every workstation has been created, working with the local governments, we'll be able to fix these cars faster and quicker so that they go back to the road. The decision is that at any given time, it should be 80-20. At least 20% of cars, they should be in the garages, but 80% of cars, they should be forever on the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Honorable Gomba.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Minister, visible policing is also linked with Operation Chanela, and it involves the cooperation and working together with communities. How will the minister ensure that the role and involvement of the community in the fight against crime is strengthened within the context of visible policing? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Chairperson, it doesn't matter whether half of South African can be the police, so long we don't have working relationship with the communities, it won't work. But also we must remember that working with the communities is a constitutional obligation. It is on the constitution and legislated, especially the CPFs. There are other structures like communities in blues, like neighborhood watch and all that. For the first time last year budget, we put some money in the communities to be able to get resources to work without being hindered by working with the police. For instance, I remember very well that in Gauteng, all CPF district, they've got a kumbi so that they are not depending on the police station vehicles, but they have their own. We have just received the report on that 70 million that we have put, and that 70 million, we're very glad that at least it has been 98% utilized up to this point. This province, Western Cape, KZN, and Gauteng, they've got the lion's share on those, and then we believe that putting those resources in the hands of the CPFs will improve the working relationships, also the efficiency of these structures. Thanks.
Thank you. Akbar Ali Terblanche.
Thank you, Chairperson. On the 8th of February 2024, the State President stated during the State of the Nation address that the government has strengthened the ranks of the police service by recruiting 20,000 police officers over the past 2 years and another 10,000 in the year to come. The demand for policing services is growing daily, but the personnel strength of the department is decreasing despite this huge recruitment drive. The numbers decreased from 157,518 in 2012 to 140048 in 2022. Minister, you and your department's inability to introduce a workable retention strategy undermines the safety of all South Africans. How do you plan to rectify this? And by when, Minister? Thank you.
Thank you.
When you were responsible for supply chain management, Honorable Member, you were supposed to build a station called Nsuze. You remember us meeting that you're supposed. That station has not been built since we.
Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, I've been cautioned about replying directly to the member.
No, I'm just reminding that he was responsible to build these police stations. He left them unbuilt. But the crux of the matter is that, Chair, I fully agree with the member. We have a problem of a high turnout of police members. 55, since that was allowed, that you can take your pension and retire at 55, we have high number of police that are living at that age. So instead of increasing the number from the young blood, we find ourselves replacing. That has been put in the treasurer, that has been put with the president, and the 10,000, 10,000, 10,000 was on the first cycle of 3 years. We believe that will be given, and we believe that the age will be going younger and less people will be retiring going forward. Once that happens, we'll begin to pick up the numbers within the South African police. As it stands now, almost every month, we sign more than 100 that are leaving the system, which at the age of 55, you can't stop them. The law allows them to do so. And when they come, they say we retire. We beg some of them to stay long, especially on the crucial elements like detectives, where the experience is needed. Some that are coming back and all that, but we are working on that. Honorable Terry Blanchard, the SCM of the South African Police.
Thank you. Honorable Terry Blanchard, they still meet you in the subs. Maybe the minister wants to pray.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, our country is under threat of serious crime and sophisticated criminals. Therefore, we need much more policemen and women on the ground. 10,000 more policemen will not be sufficient, given the state of crime in communities. Do you in any way consider to integrate the reservist force into the formal police structure in order to increase visibility and manpower? There is a dire need for foot patrols in densely populated communities. Do you have a plan in this regard? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Honorable Member, I fully agree with you. But we don't only need members and quantity, we also need quality within the South African police, of which the response of the South African police has huge successes in big takedowns. If you want to see a real serious takedowns, come to Western Cape. Your well-known Madoc, your well-known Ralph, the well-known everybody, they are in there. But again, police have just done a big takedown announced yesterday, which is continuing and all that. That includes the murder of the German tourist in Limpopo. Those people have been arrested. We're about to arrest those that killed the water official. We know them, we're chasing them and all that. So it's both quantity and quality. But this question is also related to the relationship with the communities. Indeed, we are trying to recruit more reservists. But the problem that we have found with reservists, as they come, some of them, they want to bypass the proper recruitment channels. They say, because we are reservists, so take us on, bypass the age thing, bypass the standard, bypass the other things, bypass the health, bypass the criminal record and all that. So you still have to do what you're supposed to do to be a permanent member of South Africa. But we have started to increase those members. They are good ones, we work with them and they help us a lot. And we are not about to cut off on the policy of recruiting reservists. Thanks very much.
Thank you. As we now allow you to take your seat back and invite the Honorable Minister of Defense and Military Veterans to respond on question number 10. Memudis. The question is asked by the Honorable Petlin.
Thank you, ma'am.
The primary role of the Defence Force is the protection of the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of this country. The list that the Honorable Pesha lists as the roles that we find ourselves in are actually recognized secondary roles of the Defence Force. So as a matter of fact, we are not doing anything untowards, because right from the inception and the newborn called the South African National Defence Force, that role of being deployed in support of the police and any other department of this country became our role. So whilst our budget should be slanted towards our primary role, we do find ways of training to be in the secondary role. And that is why when the military is deployed in support of the police, we make sure that quickly we refresh on the military codes, but they also understand the roles of the police and how they are going to behave in support. As far back as 1921, if I'm correct, Honorable Mare, this country recognized the role of the military in disaster management. And that is why SAFI was created and empowered as a vehicle that enables the defense in terms of disasters to be the only body that can procure. So we are ready, we are trained, we prepare to be in that role of supporting the others. The building of bridges, we are there. In the building of bridges, the ones that you have, ma'am, in KZN, the ones that we boast about in the Eastern Cape, the ones that are being built across this country, in coordination and cooperation with the Public Works Department. We are there to make sure that the border is secured. We work with BMA. We are aware that we are now in the mines in concert with the police, because when you start touching the systems and the integrity of our economy, you touch us. And therefore, we are not apologetic that we find ourselves in the roles, even though most of the time we are not adequately budgeted for. Because what country can stand anywhere if it cannot show that it is strong enough to protect itself, to protect its economy? And therefore, we would say that, yes, we are there. Are we trained? Yes, every soldier in the Defence Force does have an alternative trade. This Defence Force has produced plumbers, electricians, wood, whatever, builders, we have them. And therefore, in times of the disasters, they come in as the secondary hands to help South Africa rebuild. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. The Honorable Petle? The Honorable Minister, you may take yours.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for the response. Given the increased involvement of the South African National Defence Force in addressing internal threats, can you provide insight into any recent developments or initiatives taken by the government to enhance cooperation and coordination between the military, law enforcement agencies, and other relevant stakeholders to effectively address these challenges? I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the Minister.
Thank you, ma'am. The structures meet regularly. The National Security Council now meets regularly. There is always a lookout for what is happening in this country. And therefore, whether the information comes from the structures, from the police or from the military, we keep in the know. We also must remember that when we are deployed in support of the police, that sometimes it doesn't cost us a cent, but that we made provision for it. When disasters strike, for instance, the last Nihao strike, our soldiers were all over the country. Our soldiers were in clinics in the rural areas to make sure that especially the little babies did not die. So there is coordination of the structures. There are regular reports to us. We regularly sit and look at way outs. We regularly sit and inform the head of state, who is the commander-in-chief, by the way, of the National Defense Force. So we make sure that whatever it is that we are looking at, we prepare to save lives. We prepared to restore dignities of South Africans.
Ra leboga. Motlhomphegi Mare.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, you look very good in blue, especially there on the screen. And I must admit, I was not sure whether I will see you here today, given the news of the last couple of days that you have apparently joined the MK. So glad to see you here. But Minister, surely you must agree that the appetite of your government to deploy our overstretched and under-resourced defense force manpower and equipment is because of the failed state of these government departments, most notably the South African Police Service. This is dangerous, irresponsible, and is endangering more than just the soldiers. It can be argued that it is not a fight against a threat of our national security, but in isolated geographical areas where the interest of the ANC is under threat. The budget last week certainly have not provided any financial assistance. What have you done to secure more resources, specifically money, modern warfare prime mission equipment, especially the continuous use of Oryx helicopters? And
Unfortunately, your time is up. And Honorable Mare, this is a national parliament. Let's not put non-tested allegations on this platform. Please.
Honorable.
Thank you.
Honorable,
Honorable.
I am very happy to wear blue anytime. It is a color I like. I am also happy to wear any other color of the rainbow in this country. Because I do think that what we fought for as South Africans was to be able to express ourselves in any way. Our cultures, our identities, it doesn't matter what color. And therefore I wear blue. And of course, I do not want to really grace and promote I almost said rubbish, pardon me. The rubbish news of me ever leaving this organization that I went into as a young person. But your question was, we don't have money and the police have failed. I do not think so. I think that we must go back to the 1990s, especially around 1995, 96, when we were in the mode of integrating and making sure that all the peoples of this country find themselves into the defense and into the police. I think we must also look at the then funding patterns of the state. If anybody has failed to provide for defense to have adequate, I put it squarely, and I've said it quite openly in my party. It is the decision that was taken by the executive then, to try and push money to build houses and to build schools and to make sure that the social spending and the dignity of South Africans was made to be more primary than to rearm and to maintain the equipment of the defense. Now, we're very clear that that might have been a good thing, to make sure that you do away and try and lessen the indignity of Black people in this country as soon as possible. But you also created a problem because therein lied the lack of maintenance, identified funds, and we have been hard at work to ratify that. We will be coming to the committees to tell you what we have been doing. I'm out of time, but we have a plan, which I am sure the Honorable Mare will be very happy to hear.
Thank you. The Honorable Mudle. I'm sorry, I'm looking the underneath. Sorry. I
So we are
picked
on
the
the-
wrong
on the
one.
Same question.
Nee, wag. Rema Fanya.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thabo, it was my turn. Sure. The deployment of South African National Defence Force in any security threat situation, be it domestic gang warfare, illegal mining, and combating of Escort mafia syndicates. We agree with each other here, Minister, demands our army to be fully equipped with the compliant, not just weapons, compliant, necessary weapons. The soldiers must always be combat ready, and their wellness is paramount. Minister, no amount of strategy can save the continuous decline of our military capabilities, while the Treasury failed to fund the SANDF optimally. How do you hope to save the SANDF from embarrassing defeats by criminals? Thank you.
Leboge, so far, there isn't any embarrassing defeat from the South African criminals on the defense. So far, we have managed to play our role effectively in support of the police. And we have also been mindful that, in fact, we are in support of the police, that the police must take the lead when we are deployed internally. But I did say to Ntate Mare, we do have a plan. We have been busy with the review of the 2015 review, Ntate Mare. We are at the point where we have been engaging, where we are left with calling for experts, the committee, to look at what we are working on. The Defense Force has come out with what they call the journey to greatness. We have been in discussion with the Commander-in-Chief. We have been asked to start putting up a financial plan for this, what we are wanting to put in, because we want to then be able to stop the further decline, but in the meantime, to be able to continue to do what we do best, and that is to protect the integrity of South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Koshi Kebekulu.
Thank you, Chair. My concern, firstly, is that we continuously deploy our members of the SNDF to support the police in dealing with crime that is happening inside the country. But it is us, it is this government of the day that has allowed the influx, that has allowed Tom, Dick, and Harry to come to South Africa and sort of do crime unhindered. Now we are seeing the SNDF members to go in there and assist. My biggest question, Chairperson, or my main question, Chair, is around the fact that since then the SNDF has been deployed to assist. What gains that we've successfully achieved since the members were deployed to support the SAPS? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Litona.
In the last question, during COVID, the police and SNDF were deployed to help out, to make sure that people stayed in, to prevent the further spread, which would have been more catastrophic for this country. We have been at, I quoted earlier on, during the Nihao strike, in clinics, looking after babies, in schools, making sure that those kids were not abandoned sometimes when classes should continue. The Honorable Tsebekulu also says we have allowed Tom, Dick, and Harry to come into the country. He forgot the Janes and the Marys. We have been in people's countries. We understand how it is to be outlawed in your own country, to run away to try and find yourself as a human being in somebody else's land. We are very clear that everybody is welcome in South Africa for as long as they respect our laws. And therefore, South Africa cannot say that it is going to be a country that will refuse people who are in need. When they come into our country, we expect that they will come declare themselves, that they will be under the watch eyes of Minister Motsoaledi's Home Affairs, that the laws of this country will be respected. That is what is expected from any civilized country. So it is not true that we would prioritize allowing criminals to enter into our country to the detriment of our people, because if we say that, we actually will not be faithful to what this country stands for. It is for the dignity of ourselves. But we must also remember that we were once out there in other people's countries. They gave us refuge, they gave us food. And therefore, we must never forget where we come from as South Africans. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. We are now proceeding to the next question with the Honorable Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, question 41, asked by the Honorable Mare, the Minister.
Honorable Mare's question is quite straight to the point. He asked where we are finding the budget for our deployment. Honorable Mare, currently you will not find a specific budget item in our budget for the amounts for the deployment in the DRC. Because I must remind you that when we initially went into the DRC, we went under the umbrella of MONUSCO. And that, in fact, whatever it is that we were expending was supposed to be repaid. That defense was not claiming all that repayment on its equipment and personnel was largely our fault. That when we started demanding, we got something back. Now, we think that we are now going in as part of the summit DRC. That is different from the deployment from MONUSCO. Initially, and the reason we were there, it was because it was clearly a conflict which was between citizens of the same country, and we were part of the deployment with the UN to try and help. The reason why MONUSCO thought it was time to go, it was because we were at the drawdown time that they were looking, as a country, DRC was going into democratic election, that we thought the de-escalation of conflict had been done, that we thought that communities were now being able to go back to their homes so that they could then start being democratic, use the ballot box to restore themselves. We agreed to go in as summit DRC because just as the announcement was made of MONUSCO withdrawing, and us agreeing with that withdrawal, we started seeing the increase in the attacks on civilians. SADC then decided that we could not leave the situation like that. And of course, we would not go in and leave the situation as dangerous or more dangerous than when we went in. And that is why we are part of Summit DRC. I think that in the coming budget, you will see a budget line that will say how much we will be expending. I must also say that we are expecting that we will be given an allocation on this current deployment. I will also say to you that we are there because we are part of not only SADC, but we have always in Africa pushed for the silencing of guns, making sure that people are in their own spaces to take up their own lives. And therefore, as I said, you will not see currently in the current budget, you will not see a line for that. But we will be funded because we are raising that issue with Treasury and with the presidency. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Barolit, Mare.
Thank you. Minister, despite the promises by the President, last week's budget only provided 2.6 billion rand over the medium term for our deployments in Mozambique and the DRC, which implies that not nearly enough is available for this year's 2.4 billion rand as authorized by the President related to Operation Tiba. It was confirmed last week by Secretary of Defense and the Chief of Joint Operations. This cost is unfunded, which implies compromising our prime mission equipment capabilities further and endangering the lives of ordinary South Africans as well as our deployed soldiers. Contrary to the UN's refunds of between 450 million and 750 million versus our cost of 1 billion rand per year, this 2.4 billion rand must now be financed from the unfunded defense budget bottom line. With mostly one Oryx available in the DRC, we just do not have the air support, modern technology and resources to prevent the further loss of equipment and our soldiers returning home in body bags like we have unfortunately experienced this month. These were preventable, which makes the President and yourself accomplice to their deaths. PSS contracts could not be concluded between Denel and the Air Force. And even lately, Air Force headquarters has been closed by the Department of Defense because it's unsafe for occupation. Given the significant underfunded defense budget and threats experienced domestically and on our borders, our higher national safety and integrity interest should be the protection of our land and people in terms of Constitution Section 200, subsection 2. We do not have the luxury to be Father Christmas to the ANC's interest and friends in Africa.
Your 2 minutes has now lapsed.
How do you
Thank you.
justify, in spite of the President's promises, the loss of lives, the wounded, and
Honorable Mare, your 2 minutes. You are the most advantaged to ask a follow-up question for 2 minutes as the one who asked the question. Please don't stop others from getting their time. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, ma'am. Through you. Honorable Mare, I do not wish to justify. I wish to state categorically that we have been leading in this region. We have been leading in Africa through the AU. We host the Pan-African Parliament, which is home to many countries here. We preach peace, the silencing of the guns. We preach that children must be able to be comfortable in their own beds wherever they are. And that is our contribution towards this region and this continent. There is no ANC interest in the DRC. Our interest is peace throughout the continent. We are not making money in the DRC. You say that we are liable for the debts. Now, that I think, even for you, Honorable Mare, is low. We are a defense force that does not conscript. We are a defense force which has members voluntarily coming in. We are a defense force that prepares very well for our members. And yes, our prime equipment has been compromised by the lack of maintenance over the years, not because we have gone into the DRC. The reason why we have made it a point to prioritize the review of the 2015 review is precisely because we must be able to go with something that is credible, that is doable, that has been costed to demand the resources that we need so that we can continue. I do not think that Honorable Mare wants me to start here and say what we are going to do about ensuring that the South Africans in the DRC are safe. I can assure this Parliament that since last week, that the DRC government has gone out of its way to make sure that it acquires for its own defense force that which they need to finish their business. And I can assure you that we, on the other hand, have made sure that whatever equipment our sons and daughters need in the DRC has been shipped. Not all that they need has gone. They will get what they need to get. Do we regret that we have sent our people there? No, we don't. Do we regret the loss of life? We mourn the passing of our children. I receive the corpse. I sit with those families. I speak with the DRC. I can tell you that even their president sent condolences and sent the highest hierarchy to come here and to meet up with the families. So we do not take making peace and allowing other people to enjoy the democracy that we enjoy as South Africans for granted. And we do, as the families are told over and over, that in war, sometimes there is loss of life. We regret that. We want to make sure that nothing ever happens. We have taken steps to ensure that those soldiers who are right there right now are able to withstand any pressure that they will be put to. And yes, Honorable Mare, we will come to the committee. And yes, Honorable Mare, I do know that you do want a close meeting. And no, Honorable Mare, on this platform, I am not going to give any operational information about the DRC meeting.
Thank you. You will realize that I use my discretion according to Rule 1423. As we proceed and talk to Tate Mutle.
Chair. No, Minister, thank you for your response. In your response, you raise an important aspect around the withdrawal of MONUSCO and the decision taken by SADC. How you also raised the challenge around the reinvestment. How are we going to ensure that that process that was a challenge under MONUSCO is resolved? And what are the strategic objectives, Minister, and the expected outcome of the deployment of these 2.9 soldiers into the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as, importantly, what the South African government envisions out of this deployment insofar as regional stability is concerned, and what are the main interests of the Republic in the Eastern DRC? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We want to imagine an Africa that is free, that talks, that trades, that grows using their own resources without outside interference. The guns that continue to blaze are not necessarily empowered by Africans themselves. The escalation of this current flare in the DRC, I can here say, we know that it is funded. We know from where it is funded. We know the country through which those weapons are smuggled in, more sophisticated than the weapons of the state of the DRC. The DRC does not have white soldiers. There are white mercenaries in the DRC that we are now seeing. So you've got a war that is perpetuated, and that will continue to be perpetuated until Africa gets a house in order and begins to work together. And our responsibility as SADC is not to run away from a member of SADC. It is to encourage, whilst the war is going on, to encourage dialogue, and that is what we are doing, to encourage that as we are on war and as the dialogue is going on, we are properly resourced, and we have spoken to our head of state and treasury to begin to do just that. And therefore, as Honorable Mutle, we get what we are now demanding from treasury and from the presidency. We will come back to the committee and we will be able to tell you. But we are not going to be risking our children's lives. We do know, we keep our eyes on what is happening there. Our ears are also open. We know who is playing what. But we are also saying it is not just through the barrel of the gun that we will get peace in the DRC. It is also by forcing everybody to go around the table and talking, and that process is starting.
Thank you. Remafanya?
Thank you very much, Minister. No amount of money can instantly repair our aircraft like the Rafale, Oryx, and others whose spares cannot be manufactured or purchased anyway. Cannibalizing other aircrafts for spares did not yield the outcomes that were envisaged. No amount of instant training our soldiers can yield the desired outcomes in a war situations like what is presently happening in the DRC. We cautioned the ministry throughout the Sixth Parliament that our army is outstretched and lacks resources. The 2 billion that is allocated for the cost of employment of 2,900 soldiers in DRC is inadequate, and it warrants the ministry to withdraw our army until we have a competitive edge against the M23 army and the negative influence of Rwanda in the war in the Eastern DRC. Minister, will you consider withdrawing our army before we lose more of our soldiers in the DRC?
Honorable Mafanya, don't listen to them. Please proceed.
The South African National Defence Force in all its entity formations, South African Health Services, Arms Corps, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Reserve Force soldiers remain facing serious budgetary constraints, and rejuvenating the army remains a far-fetched
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, honorable members. No, you don't have to make noise about it. That's what, ayikho le, asithuleni sonke, gizam, and niyaheklana ngapha endlini. There is heckling allowed. Yes, that's why I said to him, don't listen to them. To whoever is speaking, proceed. Honorable McPherson, what is your order for?
Thank you, Chair, and I'm glad you've made the point that you have, because it's okay for the EFF to heckle a DA member when they're asking a question, but they don't like it when the ANC does it to them. It can't be both ways.
That's not a point of order. It was not even necessary. That's something you can discuss out of this house. We proceed to the minister to respond to Babu Mafanya.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we are in the silly season. We are in the silly season facing the elections, and therefore, all of us will say things that we might regret tomorrow. The commitment of South Africa, the participation and the leadership of South Africa and the AU in SADC is not something that an ordinary Minister of Defense in South Africa can just by the stroke wipe away. I do not, and I cannot. If you want to withdraw the troops of South Africa, you have to face the Commander-in-Chief of the South African National Defense Force, that is the President. My job is to ensure that those kids are given the wherewithal to do what they need to do. They are looked after. I have said that we are drawing up that plan. I have also said that we are making sure that they get what they need to get in this deployment to do their job. So we can't at every time, honorable members, when you have agreed to do something and when it turns sour, you turn tail and you run home. We're not children. We are committed to making sure that Africa finds herself and orders herself and rules herself. And sometimes you have to bite the bitter pill. And that bitter pill is what we are biting. Do we want our children to die in foreign shores? No. No. So as I say, we do regret the deaths of our children. We do hope that none of them will die. We do actually It is not true that the Roy Falk and so on and so forth and the Oryx are unfixable. I have been running around the world, and I can tell you that as soon as we get the money, not only the Roy Falk will be upgraded, the ships, we are in the process of making sure that they float nicely. Your frigates will, your inshore boats will be bought, the one that is remaining, and the offshore boats will be bought. We have that plan, and that plan will come to the committee. So, honorable members, sometimes it would just be nice to go back to what we used to be, to respect that defense cannot be a football in the political parties, because they belong to all of us. They look after all of us. The integrity of this country hangs on their performance. And sometimes when we are in need, we need to be open to Parliament and say, we are in need, as we will be coming back to Parliament to say, help put and thicken your voice so that we get that which we need. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Koshi Kebekulu.
Thank you once more, House Chairperson. Foreign Minister, provision of necessary equipment to defend and protect women and men themselves who have been sent to DRC to execute a mission. At the same time, protecting the vulnerable civilians exposed to these thugs that continue to smuggle minerals to export them to Europe and other countries. But it is the fact, Honourable Minister, that it is alleged, it is alleged, Honourable Minister, that it is the Rwandans who are involved mostly with those mercenaries that the Minister has just been mentioning, to sort of destabilize the situation in DRC. My question, Honourable Minister, South Africa has been playing a big brother in SADC. Where are the other SADC countries? What role are they playing to push their shoulders up to assist in quelling the unrest there?
Honorable Minister.
South Africa has been playing big brother. I don't know about that. South Africa has been playing the role that South Africa needs to play to make sure that all of us can live. We forget that in the not so far past, we caused other countries, other citizens in their own countries to be killed by our system here when we were in hiding in other people's countries. And I'm not saying that therefore we need to go out and die. I am saying that what we need to do is to ensure that all the parties involved in this conflict in the DRC, if we have to say to our head of state, they must be direct kicking and screaming to a dialogue table, then we are saying that. But we know that ultimately dialogue must happen for Rwanda to find peace, not for Rwanda to find peace, and that peace, they must know that that peace is also needed largely in the DRC. So our role will be make sure that our kids are properly looked after here at home and out wherever they are. Make sure that whatever we do in the DRC or any other country that we interact in does not leave this country vulnerable. And that is where we are always focusing. Even as we go out there, make sure that you do not leave South Africa vulnerable. That we can tell you, we are beginning to do very, very well. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And we now invite the Honorable Minister of Police to take the podium as we go into question number 54, asked by Muruti Mishwe.
Just help me one day, tell me the story of Kotakwanavada. Gangs exist in various forms and concentration throughout the country and can generally be linked to drugs and organized crime. The scourge of gangsterism is deeply seated in many communities and requires a complete, all-encompassing government response to address implications. Policing is part of the solution. The present gang structure requires a special attention because it fits the systematic adoption of the pervasive gang culture. These aspects were incorporated into the National Anti-Gangsterism Strategy, which was adopted by Cabinet in the year 2016. The SAP's anti-gang unit are at the forefront of policing interventions to address gang-related crime and violence, and work closely with organized crime investigators, the Hawks. The establishment of the anti-gang unit was approved by the National Commission of Police on 26 June 2019. The establishment of the first anti-gang unit was in the Western Cape in 2019, and thereafter, the concept rolled out to the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, Free State, KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and Northwest Province to ensure the focused police response to dealing with the gang-related crime. In addition, the following SAP's actions have an impact on the root causes and manifestation of gangsterism and are intended to address the spreading of gangsterism and gang-related crime. Proactive law enforcement to address the supply of drugs, which is mostly associated with gangsterism, multidisciplinary police responses to drug and gangsterism-related crimes, intervention designed especially to counter money laundering and promote judicial cooperation, the identification of trends and initiation of intervention to control new psychoactive substances. School safety programs are also utilized to counter the threat of gang-related crime and the involvement of learners in such crimes. The SAPS works closely with schools in each policing area and is actively involved in crime awareness program in schools. Priority schools are regularly searched for drugs and weapons, which, if found, are seized by SAPS. Child offenders are dealt with in terms of the Child Justice Program in cooperation with the Department of Social Welfare. Youth at risk are also identified and recruited to be part of the local police station youth crime prevention. The SAPS works with all communities policing structures at station, district and provincial levels to address crime and safety concerns in each community, in communities affected by gang violence. Addressing the scourge of gangsterism is an important focus area of community policing forum and community partners and all other structures that are in the community to fight the scourge of gangsterism. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Moruti Mishra.
Ke a leboga mme modulasetulo. Ke a leboga. A number of researchers from some countries that are concerned about the increasing cases of gangsterism in their communities have come up with proposals they believe will help to prevent more people, particularly young people, from joining gangs. Their proposals include the following. Firstly, they believe communities must strengthen families and schools. The ACDP is concerned by the absence of specific programs formulated to strengthen families and the family life in our country. But secondly, these researchers are proposing that special training should be given to teachers and parents to manage disruptive young people. My question to the minister now is whether government has
or is planning to develop programs to prevent more gangs from emerging, particularly in provinces that do not have problems of gangsterism? And if there are such programs, when are they going to be implemented? Ke a leboga mme.
Go leboga rona. Letona.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The member would be reminded that it has been said time and again that in March 2022, the government passed the document that is integrated strategy against violence and working together of all departments to fight the scourge of crime, in particular gangsterism and the involvement of young people in crime. That document is called 6 pillars. One of the pillars is an early intervention. Early intervention, you mean young ones. For instance, it's true, if you don't deal with the young ones, they are not going to deal with gangsterism. Forget about socio-economic and all that, but if you go to, as it would happen, if you go to some areas, including places like Eidseg here, Hanover Park, you have a meeting with community at 11 on Tuesday, on the school day. You find that there are more kids at the meeting than parents. They're not going to stop gangsterism. So there must be intervention of basic education, social development, and everybody. So, because you're not going to be arresting the 9-year-old, the 12-year-old, the 11-year-old, and all that, there must be the other mechanism. The Mfundisi asked if there is a way of doing it. I will invite everybody to have that document, and you read the document. It tells you those 6 pillars that indeed it will help to deal with this situation. But one big other thing is the socio-economic situation will have to change for us to defeat gangsterism. Thanks.
Thank you. Mema Rekwa.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo. Honorable Minister, the fight against gangsterism requires a comprehensive approach that involves the state departments, institutions, families, communities, including cooperation with provinces. Then, Honorable Minister, what is your assessment of the level of cooperation across the 3 spheres of government in combating crime in general and gangsterism in particular? I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
The document that I've spoken about should result in the presidency, national, and result in the premier's offices, provincial, and reside on the mayor's offices, the local government. That is an integrated approach that all of them have to work on that document, to work on these matters. If that happens and everything becomes the responsibility of all these levels, it will help. Sometimes you find that there is no proper cooperation. The priorities are not the same. I fully agree with Reverend Mishra, Honorable Reverend Mishra, that one major thing that most of us we undermine is a unit called family. And I guess all of us as we sit here, very few of us will pursue and we follow to find out what is the situation of families of those kids. We call them paras. Of those kids, we call them delinquents. You just see them, you just look at them, they are in their nyawup and all that, but nobody picks them up to find out what's an issue. Is one area where we'll have to work harder. But that document I'm talking about, the integrated strategy against violent crime, will help all of us to tell all members of parliament and those that they care to be responsible to how to respond as it has been requested. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. As we proceed to Honorable Golding.
Thank you, Speaker. Honourable Minister, the combating of gangsterism and organised crime calls for the bolstering of specialised units in the SAPS. The DA notes the strengthening of the anti-gang unit this past week with an additional 47 members and another 53 on the way. So thank you for that. We are concerned, though, about the possible misuse of specialised units. We note with concern, particularly the misuse of the SAPS Air Wing. Minister, this past weekend, in your role as a politician, you used the SAPS helicopter as transport to a manifesto launch. Minister, did you abuse valuable state and SAPS resource for private purposes, and who authorized its use?
Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
No. Firstly, you better honor yourself by getting proper facts. Don't come here and talk things that you don't know about. I'm giving an answer, guys. Listen, the question was asked. I'm giving an answer. To start with the grand plan. You know, I don't know why DA did not put my name in their manifesto. I don't know. Please put my name in your manifesto. So that, yeah, please. You know, somebody writes to say they came with a grand helicopter. I came in the stadium exactly 6:15 in the morning, driving 2 cars like all other ministers. When we went to War Room, we received that there are problems in 2 areas, one in Wamashu, one in Inanda. So the availability of reaching those areas to stop that trouble, as usual, it happens many other times. It happened on that way. But I did not arrive. I did not use helicopter to arrive. I used helicopter. On that day, when there was ANC manifesto, there was still a minister of police. And the minister of police had to do the crime prevention together with the police, as usually does. So that's what happened. So, yes, it happens.
Order.
So,
Honourable members.
If you can just squeeze yourself a little bit to get the actual facts, you would not come here and really ask such blind questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe I must just remind Honorable Golling about Rule 1426. Order, honorable members. This is for you in future. Rule 1426 says a supplementary question must arise directly from the original question. That's why I always give a discretion to ministers. But let's because we know what is expected.
Minister Chele. Chair. Honorable Minister, gangsterism has been professionalized and became a fashion, particularly under our youth in disadvantaged communities. The EFF proposed a permanent special task force to fight gangsterism. Does your department, Honorable Minister Chele, have plans?
Don't do that, members.
Have plans in place to increase the number of policemen in that special squad, and will you avail appropriate budgets for this purpose?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister.
There are different units within the South African Police Service. Those that they do ordinary policing, your visible policing, your station. And then you begin to move up a little bit to those that are between the high risk and medium risk. That's what you have, what they call the TRT, Amaparet. That's what you call the CATS. And then you move up to get the NIU, but you move to the top to get the Special Task Force. Special Task Force are human machines. If you have ever met the member of a special force, it takes 1.1 million to train one. Takes 1.1 million to train one member of the special task force. Therefore, they are used at that level. Fortunately, this March again, they are going to compete. They are going to compete in the UAE as they were last year, and they came, I think, number 10 out of 54 countries. So it's one of the most valuable units we have. So we have trained anti-gang unit, which is highly trained, but also it's a multidisciplinary approach. To them, it's got detectives, it's got CI, crime intelligence, and it's got TRT as they approach the areas of gangsterism. We believe that anti-gang units in the country are adequate at the present moment to face the gangsters. You will not call the special task force to deal with that. They are called on a very high, sophisticated, dangerous activities if they need to, like a cash heist or like the hijacks and all that kind of thing. So you will be overstretching and undermining your resources if you take special task force to go and do that kind of job. Thanks.
Thank you. And you may take your seat there, Honorable Minister. We are done with question 54. As we invite the Honorable Minister of International Relations to respond on question number 11, asked by the Honorable Muyela.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The reply to the question is as follows. The government, through the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, intends to use all its diplomatic relations to strengthen international support for South Africa's principled case against the State of Israel's intended genocide against the Palestinian people. With regards to countries that share our views and convictions on the situation, we are actively engaged in exploring means through which we can work together with them in our common goal of ending Israel's ongoing and devastating aggressions against the Palestinian people. This includes exploring partnerships with these like-minded countries in amplifying our calls for an immediate end to Israel's genocidal actions, and exploring cooperation against joint legal action toward this end. Where we meet objections to South Africa's stance on this situation, we continue to use our diplomatic relations in an attempt to persuade countries of the merit of our case and the urgency of halting Israel's aggressions, which are resulting in large numbers of casualties and a wholesale destruction of Palestinian lives, tantamount to what we view as genocide. One of the provisional measures ordered by the International Court of Justice on 26 January this year directed the State of Israel to submit a report to the court on all measures taken to give effect to the provisional measures order within 1 month of that order, thus on the 26th of February. South Africa and the court now have an opportunity to study the report and to respond to it. In ensuring Israel's compliance with the court order, South Africa will continue to pursue the options available to us under the statute of the court, the Charter of the United Nations, and the entire multilateral system to ensure full and effective implementation of the existing provisional measures. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Muyela.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for the comprehensive response presented to the House. Considering the ongoing conflict in Gaza and the potential implications of the International Court of Justice proceedings, how does the Republic plan to address the immediate humanitarian needs of the affected population, particularly considering the report in critical situation like in Rafah, and the steps are being taken thereof to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid to the people in need in that particular area? Thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the Honorable Moela for the question. As the Honorable Moela is aware, South Africa did provide, through its limited means, some support in terms of humanitarian aid for the people of Palestine. And as the Honorable members are aware, there are many countries that have made contributions. However, the aid is being prevented from entering the occupied territories with the intent to continue what we believe is the genocidal intent. So we continue to work closely with UN agencies to call for and support them in delivery of humanitarian aid to the areas that need support. We have noted with great positive view the dropping of aid by air by some countries into the occupied territories. But the first prize is for diplomatic engagement to ensure that Israel opens the borders and allows the trucks to come in to really provide the much needed aid to the people of Palestine. I have been meeting various colleagues here in Geneva at the Human Rights Council, and I'm aware that discussions are underway to try to secure greater access for humanitarian aid and to prevent, should the talks succeed, the catastrophe that we expect will occur should there be an onslaught on Rafah. But all of us are working together as colleagues throughout the world to try to end the slaughter and to ensure that aid does get through to the people of Palestine.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question is by the Honorable Chetty.
Minister, a number of months ago, your department closed the South African mission in Tel Aviv and withdrew all our staff members. However, the embassy in Ramallah, Palestine, remains open. We know that the Ramallah embassy has always operated in concert with the embassy in Tel Aviv, and it's not possible for this embassy to process votes abroad while the embassy in Tel Aviv remains closed. In 3 months' time, South Africa will head to the polls. All South Africans have a guaranteed constitutional right to vote. What plans is your department putting in place to ensure that South African citizens in both Palestine and Tel Aviv will be able to cast their votes? I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. While that is a new question, I do think the Honorable Member could submit it as a question to me. I can assure the Honorable Member that our embassy in Ramallah is pulling out all the stops to provide the necessary assistance to any South African citizen that still remains in the area of conflict or indeed in Tel Aviv. The ambassador in Ramallah is working extremely hard addressing the needs of communities, our own communities in both areas. But as the member would know, given the armed conflict and the onslaught that is underway, it is very difficult for any diplomatic mission to operate successfully. But we will do all that we can to ensure that South Africans are well served. The Honourable Member would be aware that his own party has significant contacts, just as the other ACDP colleague is aware, and we would expect that they will use their good officers to also ensure that Israel stops its onslaught on the people of Palestine and ensures all of us can then provide the normal services to our citizens as diplomatic missions in that part of the world. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Minister. The third supplementary question is from the Honorable Montreal.
Your House Chair. After having instituted proceedings to prosecute Israel at the ICC and the recent application at the ICJ, how has this affected diplomatic and trade relations with countries that are in support of the racist and murderous Israel regime?
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, the Honorable Montreal would certainly be very aware that the countries that are the greatest supporters of Israel are also those countries that claim to reflect and practice the highest democratic ideals. These ideals also include the sovereign right of nations to determine their own foreign policy. So the Honorable Montreal would surely be quite horrified to hear that in these countries, some of the most powerful in the world, there are public representatives who are intent on pursuing legislation against South Africa to curb trade with them because of the foreign policy position that the South African government has correctly adopted, a principled position in support of those who are oppressed and who are under threat imminently of death. We believe it is correct for the South African government and indeed the people of South Africa to hold this principled position of peace, of security, and of ending destruction and death. And so we are saddened that we note this intent in the House of Representatives in the United States of America of a pursuit of what we believe really is untenable and should not happen, of breaking or reducing trade ties with South Africa. We will continue to engage with public representatives as well as executive leaders in the United States of America to really say that such a step, were it to be taken, is unwarranted and goes against the very edict of what the meaning of democracy and sovereign right is. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary questions by the Honorable Flangwa.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. May I request to leave my video off for the purposes of connectivity? Chairperson, I think we all join in the international clarion call being made for a ceasefire and for a return to the negotiating table to reach a lasting solution for both Israel and Palestine, particularly along the lines of the two-state solution. And that is a noble ideal for humanity that all of us should pursue. Honorable Chairperson, of course, the exercise of going to the ICJ is a costly one, and whilst there is no cost that can be attached to Ubuntu, it is necessary for us to be taken on board in terms of the financial implications this has for the national fiscus. The question then, Minister, becomes how much is this costing us and at what rate are we paying, and which departments are part and parcel of the funding model with which is carrying South Africa's case at the ICJ, as we have been then continue with the court action there. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Again, this is a new question. And I should say that a member of the Democratic Alliance had asked it, and I had responded to the question in writing. The costs are not prohibitive because we have been paying the costs of the staff of the Justice Department officials, and that is paid by Justice and Constitutional Development, and then officials from the legal section of DERCO would be paid for by my department. The other legal counsel that we have utilized, the South African Legal Council, has provided pro bono services, and we appreciate this commitment. I believe that These are really resources that are very well spent. They've included airfare costs, minimal SNT as per the Public Service Handbook, and are not of a size that would cause alarm to honourable members of Parliament. However, should the specific figures be needed, I will ask my office to provide the Honourable Tlengwa with the response I provided to the member of the Democratic Alliance who asked this very question. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Question number 1 has been asked by the Honorable Heron to the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you once more, Chairperson. The response to the question is as follows. Firstly, in a request that we submitted to the International Court of Justice on the 12th of February, the South African government expressed its grave concern that the unprecedented military offensive against Rafah would result in further large-scale killing, harm, and destruction in violation of the court's order of 26 January this year, and in breach of the Genocide Convention. South Africa requested the court to exceptionally consider exercising its power under Article 75(1) of the Rules of the Court, which empower the court at any time to decide whether the circumstances of the case require the indication of additional provisional measures which ought to be taken or complied with by any or all of the parties. In its order of 16 February, the court affirmed South Africa's view that the perilous situation demands immediate and effective implementation of the already ordered provisional measures indicated in the order of 26 January, which are applicable throughout the Gaza Strip, and the court indicated that this includes Rafah. The South African government considers this to be the clearest indication that Israel must immediately implement all the provisional measures ordered by the court, which includes preventing the killing of members of the Palestinian group, causing their serious bodily or mental harm, deliberately inflicting on the Palestinians conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, and imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. We will continue as South Africa to utilize the options available under the statute of the court, the United Nations Charter, and the entire multilateral system to ensure full and effective implementation of the ICJ's order. One of the measures, Chairperson, that honorable members would recall directed Israel to submit a report to the court on all measures taken to give effect to its order within 1 month of the order, that is on 26 February. Should Israel be found to be in contempt of the court, South Africa will, as I've stated, invoke the statute of the court, the Charter of the UN, and all bodies to ensure full and effective implementation of the existing provisional measures. So we continue to act, to seek action that is responsive to the court's order as the government of South Africa. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question is by the Honorable Heron.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Minister, for the answer. As you correctly pointed out, instead of halting acts that constitute genocide under the Genocide Convention, Israel's military operations have now expanded towards Rafah. And since submitting the question just on Monday this week, Human Rights Watch, another independent human rights organization, said that Israel continues to obstruct the provision of basic services and entry and distribution within Gaza of fuel and life-saving aid. They regard this as an act of collective punishment that amounts to war crimes and includes the starvation of civilians as a weapon of war. What we're seeing here is the defiance of Israel and the continued support of Israel from many nations, some of whom withdrew aid immediately after the provisional measures order was granted by the ICJ. And these nations, including Israel, have signed the Genocide Convention. They play sometimes an oversized role in peacekeeping programs of the United Nations and support democracy and champion human rights across the globe. But their actions in subverting the ICJ's judgment seems to raise questions around hypocrisy. If nations that claim to champion human rights and subscribe to the rule of law can ignore a judgment of the court that they already agreed to be bound by, what does this say about the value of the United Nations and the international courts? And should South Africa and developing nations still participate in a body where we are not necessarily regarded as equals, where some can do as they please without recourse or sanction? Does multilateralism have a future if the ICJ is unable to order Israel to cease genocide and that order being implemented? So my supplementary question is, what role does multilateralism play if this order is defied? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Haron. Although your preamble was a bit long. The Honorable Minister, could you please respond?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think it's important to begin by saying South Africa fully supports multilateralism. We believe this is the only protection that allows us to have a system of global law that, should we all observe it, would protect us all. However, as we have said previously, particularly the United Nations and its structures and mechanisms are in need of reform. They've not been reformed for over 7 decades, and there's a great deal of work to be done. So I think as South Africa and as the National Assembly, we need to be given greater thought. What do we wish to see the Security Council become once reformed? How do we ensure efficiency, representativity, but also how do we provide capacity to protect the weak, to protect the vulnerable? Because what we are seeing is that members of the P5, the permanent 5 in the Security Council, they are really the countries that are appearing to be the greatest supporters and investors in conflict in different parts of the world. This situation has to be brought to an end, and it is only through dedicated measures of reform of the United Nations that we will have a multilateral system that doesn't empower some and fail the many. This is what South Africa is working toward as we work with the global community to change the UN system, but also to ensure that we create the ability for all of us to be treated equally and to be protected. We want a situation where economic weight doesn't mean global power, but where we have institutions that equally address the needs of every citizen of the globe. That is what I think we should work toward, to build an effective, efficient, and responsive multilateral system. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question is by the Honorable Mpanza.
Asibonge, House Chairperson. Honorable Minister, given South Africa's recent urgent request to the International Court of Justice concerning military operations in Rafah and the potential impact on the rights of Palestinians in Gaza, could the Minister provide an update on the Republic's diplomatic efforts to engage with the international community and ensure a swift and effective response to prevent further harm and destruction in the region? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. On the Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson, and I thank the Honourable Mpanza for that question. Honourable Mpanza, sisebenza kakhulu ukudibana nabaholi bamazwe amaningi ngoba sicinga ukuthi abaholi abamazwe abafana ne-UK ne-United States of America yibo abazoyiqeda le ndaba yase-Palestine. So we are working with all our colleagues throughout the world, meeting them and persuading them that it is within the interest of the globe for this conflict to be brought to an end. We draw attention to the suffering of the Palestinian people, and we call in our meetings with them for humanitarian aid to be made available to the people of Palestine. We have said to them that it is the most powerful, who are the closest friends, and perhaps the enablers of Israel, who have the power to bring this conflict to a peaceful end. So we meet on a regular basis with all the countries that are closely related to Israel, to persuade, to engage. We also speak to the people of Palestine, get guidance from them as to the areas of emphasis that they would hope South Africa would communicate in its interaction with leaders in the globe. So, Honourable Member, we remain engaged. We're aware of the various discussions, and where we have the opportunity to intervene, we do so.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The third supplementary question is by the Honourable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair. Honourable Minister, the ACDP appreciates what you said earlier, but we are concerned that the South African government has said nothing about Russia ignoring a far more serious ICJ order based on the same genocidal convention that Russia should immediately stop military operations in Ukraine, yet nothing is said about that. However, we do and we appreciate that all we should try to achieve lasting peace and at least a ceasefire in Gaza. And therefore, Honourable Minister, what role is South Africa playing, given its close ties with Hamas and its Iranian backers, to persuade Hamas to agree to a temporary ceasefire based on that very order of releasing all the hostages which you referred to earlier, and which is part of the order, and the lifting of obstacles for the provision of humanitarian aid? This seems to be the basis of the talks between the US, Egypt, Israel, and Qatar that are seeking to negotiate a pause in the war and the release of the hostages. Can South Africa, as the government, not play a greater role in that regard? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Well, Chairperson, I'm really a bit taken aback at the Honourable Swart's believing fake news. The government of South Africa doesn't have close relations with Hamas or with Hamas's backers. We have a normal relationship with Iran. I'm sure that is what he's referring to, a relationship of trade, and it is not in large volumes. I think it's also important to point out to the Honourable Swartz that the case of the occupied Palestinian territories cannot be equated with that of Ukraine and the war with Russia. As far as I'm aware, there is no NATO country that is supplying arms to the Palestinian people to defend themselves. There's not been a quantum increase in aid to Palestine to allow Palestinians to have food, fuel, water, and energy in fighting this war. All the support of the countries that provide support to Ukraine is given to Israel. So you're not talking of equivalence here. So I think it's very important that we do not, in one breath, refer to Palestine and the occupation by Israel and its onslaught, and the other, Ukraine and Russia. I do not regard the two as the same, and I'm sure the Honourable Swartz, in the deepest heart of hearts, knows that the two are vastly different. An occupation cannot be equated to the sovereign infringement of the territorial integrity of Ukraine, as we've seen with respect to Palestine. So Indeed, we will continue, as I've pointed out to the Honorable Mpanza's question. We are diplomatically engaging with all the various stakeholders. And of course, one is limited in the ability to state exactly what the nature of that engagement is. But I assure honorable members that we are seeking peace and we are seeking freedom and justice for the people of Palestine. I thank you, Chairperson.
Siyabonga, Ngqongqoshe. The last supplementary question is by the Honorable Paul.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, it's common cause that the state of Treasury's finances is utterly dismal and our country's economic outlook continues to worsen. In recent months, we've seen significant cuts made to frontline service delivery budgets, and we as a nation are struggling to fund the basics like schools, policing, hospitals. The Honorable Modisa earlier today said that our defense force is currently, and I quote, looking for money to make sure that our boats can float nicely. Our country's recent action at the ICJ was indeed an expensive exercise, relying on some of the most expensive jurists in the world. Minister, are you able to confirm to this House whether this litigation was in part funded by any foreign or external donors, organizations, governments, or any other foreign interested parties? I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I am sure the Honorable Powell wishes that her fantasy that some other government funded the legal case South Africa brought, that fantasy and fairy tale should be true. She's part of the believing of allegations against our country, because of course, once you take up a case of this weight against very powerful forces, against innocent Palestinian citizens who have done nothing to kill anyone, a 5-year-old child. Similarly, the action of Hamas, which we've indicated to the ICC, may very well constitute a war crime and should be investigated. Any action against civilians is to be regarded as offensive. But the notion that our government is unable to bear the cost of this case that has been brought is actually just an attempt to diminish the important principled stance that the government of South Africa has taken on this matter. And I am so proud to be South African at this time, to have taken up the plight of thousands who have been killed for no ill by themselves whatsoever. And so I assure the Honorable Powell that there has been no money from any sinister source provided from this case. All that lies behind it is the positive intent of the government and people of South Africa to seek to honor our obligation to others who supported us, that where there is oppression, we will strive to ensure that justice and freedom obtain. This is our sole objective with respect to the Palestinian people. There is no other sinister motive. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Question number 13 has been asked by the Honorable Legal Person to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. The Honorable Minister, the invitation to take an opportunity to take a seat if you want to still stands, Honorable Minister. You are welcome to the podium.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Yes, accountability for corruption is not exclusively limited to prosecutions. Asset recovery is a crucial aspect in combating corruption. The asset forfeiture unit has successfully restrained and preserved over 14 billion rands of state capture assets. 6.2 billion rands has been confiscated or forfeited, and 6.26 billion rands has been recovered. including the ABB case. An additional 2.2 billion rands has been secured from the ASAP agreement early this year. South Africa is making progress in prosecuting high-profile individuals and corporate entities involved in corruption. The pursuit of justice is becoming a reality, benefiting both victims and perpetrators. The government anti-corruption efforts have shown significant progress in recent years, with the SIU recovering 3.1 billion rands in cash, assets, and overturning contracts worth 18.3 billion rands through legal action. They've also prevented 11.1 billion rands in financial losses through proactive measures. The establishment of the special tribunal in 2019 has expedited the recovery process for state institutions affected by corruption. With data analytics, identifying high-risk sectors and common issues to provide effective recommendations. The special tribunal has improved efficiency by streamlining the recovery process, ultimately strengthening the fight against corruption in the country. I thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question is asked by the Honorable invoked.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, whistleblowers are critical in the fight against corruption. While legislative measures are in place to protect them, there are some gaps which have been identified in the implementation. What is government doing to protect whistleblowers, address the identified gaps, and ensure accountability from transgressors? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, House Chairperson. We have started a process where a discussion document has been published aimed to find a solution with regard to the gap or a lacuna in our law that is supposed to protect whistleblowers. As honorable members will be aware that the current Witness Protection Act only provides protection to a witness who is already built to help the police and the NPA with a matter, who is already appended to an affidavit. The current process of whistleblower discussion document is aimed to address that lacuna so that it can also be extended to any South African or any person who provides relevant information. There should be a proper definition and measures to resolve any type of protection. But secondly, also to look into issues of funding for the life of such whistleblowers as recommended by the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. So the discussion paper is looking at all the options. We will therefore, in the 7th administration, look into tabling an amendment to the Witness Protection Act to cover this aspect on the whistleblower protection. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question is by the Honorable Mulder.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Question to the Honorable Minister. Honorable House Chair, while strides have been made since 2019 to fight corruption in South Africa with the completion of the Zondo Commission and its detailed report on corruption under the previous administration, which was a crucial step in exposing wrongdoing and creating a base for action, the Corruption Perception Index has declined in recent years, meaning that the country is perceived as becoming more corrupt. Will the Honourable Minister agree that the slow pace of justice, capacity constraints, inadequate protection for whistleblowers, and the lingering culture of corruption need to be addressed before public trust in government could be rebuilt? Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mulder. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chairperson. As he does say that it is the index is on the basis of perception. The perception has also been enhanced by the fact that corruption was exposed for a number of years through the Zondo Commission. There was a number of cases that were exposed through that process, including the recommendations. So it is not surprising that that index and that perception will be looking as it is. But there is work, as I've said, by the ID to deal with the corruption's recommendation from the Zondo Commission and in all aspects of the state in terms of the legislations that were supposed to be amended. And with regards to the investigations, about 103 investigations have been declared, 37 cases involving 208 accused persons as of 31 January 2024. 2 convictions have been secured and 7 court cases have been enrolled involving 21 Zondo Commission's recommendations by the ID. While 4 cases enrolled by the NPA Special Commercial Crime Unit. So accountability for corruption is not only about these prosecutions, as we agree, it is also about the recovery of the funds. I've already given the funds that have been recovered. So with all this work that the ID is doing and in all other departments of the state, we believe that the dignity of the state and the issues of the perception will be reduced as and when the matters are rolling in the public eye. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And the third supplementary questions by the Honorable G. Breitenbach.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Minister, in the government's fight against corruption, of course, also includes the fight against corruption within the Department of Correctional Services. In the last 5 SIU reports in relation to Department of Correctional Services, 67 referrals were made to the NPA. It was recommended that 35 officials be subjected to disciplinary proceedings for corruption, maladministration amounting to billions of rands. What number of Department of Correctional Services officials' employment has been terminated, and or how many have been prosecuted as a result of these investigations by the Special Investigation Unit? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, House Chairperson. I think this is a new question. It is a new question, House Chairperson. The initial question related to state capture questions and its recommendations. So I will provide the statistics that she's looking for through a written response. I can just generally state that there have been employees that have been dismissed on the basis of the SIU investigations. There have also been those that have been referred to the NPA for prosecution, and we will provide that detailed information. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Yes, indeed, it always helps not to load the question with stats, because it becomes very difficult for a person to reply. And but if stats are going to be sought, preparations have to be done there. But we have the last question to attend to, Mr. McPherson. And the last supplementary question is from Honorable PJ Mkhwebane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, John 5 verse 19 says, the son can do nothing on his own. He does only what he sees his father doing.
Honorable members, please.
What the father does, the son also does. Underscores the principle of accountability and alignment with righteous action. The issue of sealed CR17 documents and allegations of corruption involving ministers who benefited from this raises concern. The compromised state anti-corruption agencies who fail to prosecute Steinhoff, ABB, instead you allow them to pay a bribe. So how can the government reassure the public, address the failures of holding the public representative accountable? So in other words, we want to know, what are you doing to make sure that the proceeds of crime in the Phala scandal are also recovered
very
and
much.
where are those dollars?
Thank you very
Thanks.
much, honorable member. Honorable members, order. Honorable members, order. Order. You know, I was under the impression that when matters of spirituality happen to come up, we'll sit and listen. But it's just the opposite. Honorable Minister, you are at liberty to reply.
No, thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. It is another.
Honorable Minister, could you please take your seat? There's a point of order. Honorable Manye, what is your point of order?
Yeah. Chair, I want to call a point of order on you. That when these honorable members on this side are making noise, you tolerate it. But you don't tolerate noise from this side. You're not being fair.
Honorable Manye, that is not a point of order. When I say order, I do not say members of the EFF order, or I don't point out to any party. I only say order, and that order is directed to the House, not to a particular. And I'm not prepared to converse with you, Honorable Manye. I have addressed the matter. If you have any problem with that, you know what process is to follow. I'm not going to allow that. Shall we continue? Question number 47. Oh, by the way, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. It is also another new question. It's related to the CR17 and so forth. And the same Bible the honorable member is referring to also state that it is blasphemy to refer to the Bible in vain. Please do not use the Bible for narrow political agenda. The Bible should be an instrument that brings all of us together in a spiritual way. The Hawks and the NPA are currently dealing with the Pala matter. It's in our courts. A due process is being followed, and all processes, if honorable members have got any further information, they can approach them to do so. The Steenhoff matter is also on the table. The NPA and the Hawks are dealing with it. At the right time, they will be able to inform society in terms of progress on the matter. And there is no one who received a bribe in both matters, either of Steenhoff or the one of Bosasa from the state, not to prosecute anyone. So the matters are being followed up and they are being dealt with in line with the law. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Question number 47 has been asked by the Honorable Warren to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. To fully respond to the question by Honorable Horn, I want to give some background. Our department has always viewed sexual offenses courts as a priority, so that survivors of sexual offenses are spared any form of secondary victimization and trauma as possible in the justice system. The courts, therefore, have additional infrastructural facilities such as separate waiting rooms at courts, measures for complaints to be able to testify away from the accused, intermediaries and court preparation services, and so forth. Previously, these courts were established in terms of Matso model, in other words, in line with the specifications outlined in the report of the Ministerial Task Team on the adjudications of sexual offenses matters of 2013. Since then, the designation of sexual offenses courts was put into Sexual Offences Act in terms of Section 55A. as well as provision that minister must put the services and facilities available at this cost into regulation. The regulations were duly promulgated on the date, and designated sexual offences courts must now comply with these regulations. During the period 29 May to 31 December 2023, from 2019, the department's annual performance plan set out annual targets for the establishment of sexual offences courts at 16 courts for 2019-2020 financial year. For 2020-21, it was 27 courts. For 2022-23, it was 80 courts. And for 2023-2024, it is 14 courts. As at 29 May 2019, the department had established 102 sexual offences courts compliant with the MATO specifications. As from February 2020, Section 55A came into operation and the requirements in the regulations came into effect. The minister was, however, not legally able to designate places of sitting as sexual offences courts in terms of the Act due to problems with the definitions of the regional court. Given that Section 55A required further amendment to sexual offences courts could be designed in terms of the section, but it must be highlighted that the former MATO specification courts continues to hear matters of sexual offences in terms of Section 55A(5) of the Act. The definition of the regional court is being amended by the Judicial Amendment Bill of 2023, which is currently with the President for assent. Further, during the period 29 May to December 2023, the department upgraded 98 courts in line with the sexual offences court regulations to ensure that survivors experience a victim-centric justice system that is prompt, caring, and effective. This figure includes 15 courts upgraded during this financial year. As soon as the Judicial Matters Amendment Bill is assented to by the President, these upgraded 98 courts will be ready to become sexual offences in line with Section 55A, as I referred to above. It should be noted that previously the number of sexual offences courts was calculated on the number of individual courtrooms. Now they will be counted as places of sitting. In other words, the courthouse as a whole will be designated. This means that even in the number may appear lower, there will be in practice more sexual offences courtrooms countrywide, as designated courthouse will have many courtrooms to be used for this purpose. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Horn.
Thank you, House Chair. Yes, Minister, Sections 55A arrived more or less on the scene at the same time as you. So, and what we know is that 3 months into your term, you opened one sexual offences court in Sabasa, where you stressed that to give specialized redress to victims through sexual offences courts is essential to treat these victims with dignity and to speed up justice to them. That was, of course, just after you, at the beginning of September 2019, after a UCT student were brutally raped by a post office worker, said in response that the 92 special offences courts on the table already then be accelerated. Now, if one listens carefully to your answer today, these targets, of course, have not been met. We went full circle 3 months into your term 1 court opened, and now 3 months before your term 1 opened in Port Shepstone. Minister, on your version in 2019, we must conclude that this government has failed in respect of the establishment of sexual offences courts. The only question is it because you simply failed at your task, or is it because this government do not care for the plight of the victims of sexual offences? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Horn. Your response, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. The assertion by Honorable Horn is incorrect because, as I have already stated, that we have put such courts in terms of the current regulations, awaiting the Judicial Amendment Bill by the President. Once the President has assented to the bill, we will put the 98 upgraded courts. And these 98 upgraded courts have been put and built in the period 29 May 2019 to 31 December 2023. And I've broken down them in terms of the every year, how many we have upgraded. And as we speak, they are operational, they are there, they have been delivered. And they've been operated also through those ones that were operated as per the MATSO specifications. They are also there, operating, and they've been delivered. So we have not failed because the physical infrastructure is there. It's only awaiting the assertion by the President of the Judicial Matters Amendment Bill for us to make these courts to be in line with the new definition in the Judicial Amendment Bill. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question is from the Honorable Neville Drucken.
My apologies, Chair. I'm just getting the question. Thank you, Chairperson, for your patience. Minister, on previous occasions, you indicated that a framework on the management of case backlogs and priority matters was being drafted. Has the department recorded any demonstrable results in the implementation of this framework, particularly in sexual offences courts? If so, what are those results? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Indeed, it is a new question, but we have, Honorable House Chairperson, indeed a priority process to deal with sexual offences matters. Hence, even during the period of COVID, the sexual offences were still proceeding in our courts with trials. And as we speak today, Honorable Chair, the backlog has been significantly reduced, and we can provide the stats to the Honorable Member to which extent. So there has been significant work that has been done to help to reduce the significant backlogs that was there. But there was not a huge backlog that was built even during COVID because those matters continued to be prioritized. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question is from the Honorable PJ Mkhwebane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, you've indicated the number of MATSO courts and those designated in terms of Section 55. Well, for your information, as EFF, when we take over, we will make sure that we double the number of sexual
Order, honorable members.
So, Minister, the experience, especially in the rural areas, is not what you are saying, because a number of courts do not comply with these regulations where the facilities need to meet certain standards. So are you taking stock of all those courts, and what processes have you put in place whilst waiting for the president to sign to make sure that there is efficiency and there's safe environment for the sexual offences survivors? Thanks.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. We all know that the EFF will only take over in the dreams of the honorable member. The ANC will continue to govern this country.
Order, honorable members. Allow the minister to reply to the question.
The ANC will continue to govern this country. The work that we have done with regard to the infrastructure on the sexual offences courts is countrywide. It's not only in urban courts, it's also in the rural areas. As you will have heard the Honorable Horn referring to a court in Sibasa, we also have them across the country in deep rural areas where they are victim-centric friendly. They can be used for all the purposes that have been put in terms of the MATO and also the one that have been put in terms of Section 55A. They already exist countrywide. The only thing is we're awaiting the accession by the president, but the physical infrastructure, as I said earlier, is already in place, is being utilized in terms of the regulation, and we are continuing to expand this program across the country to make the courts victim-centric and be responsive to the sexual challenges. We are also connecting these courts to Zela care centers, which have also proven to be very successful in the network of the court system. Hence, we now have a 74% conviction rate in terms of GBV and also sexual offenses matters that we are handling in our courts. And as you are aware, also with the processes of the DNA, the backlog has also been cleared. So this also enhances the work of the courts. Thank you very much, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question, the Honorable Simanga.
Honorable House Chair, Honorable Minister, recognizing the importance of awareness campaigns in combating sexual offenses, can the Minister elaborate on the department's efforts to raise awareness about the existence and functions of sexual offenses courts? Are these specific initiatives, especially in rural areas, to ensure that the community is well informed about the role of these courts and the support services available? I thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Sima. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Indeed, there is work that is being done. The department on its own hosts imbizos across the country. The last one that we have hosted was in Caroline and Mpumalanga. And we also participate in the presidential imbizos, where we distribute information with regards to the work of the department. That also includes the sexual offenses courts. And the department also run programs on the community radio stations through GCIS that also communicate the work of these courts. We also run programs in the Tutuzela care centers, which also communicate the work of these courts. And we also rely on other public reps and members of society to communicate the work of these courts. And I believe Honorable Msimang also does the same. We also, through traditional leaders across the country and councillors, communicate the message. And these courts do work and function, and also the various law enforcement structures that fit into the courts, they also communicate the same message to the people that are using these courts, including the experts like social workers, psychiatrists, and all the relevant people. So the courts do play that important role because of the public awareness that is made available and accessible to society. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The time allocated for the questions has expired. Outstanding replies received will be printed in Hansard. Order. I request members to stand and wait for the chair and the maids to leave the chamber. That concludes the business for the day and the House is adjourned.